The 2024 riding season is here finally at long last. We're on dirt. And that means that it's probably time for me, after basically a year of doing nothing, to come out with an update video and talk about my bike checks for this year, as well as getting into some riding footage so you can kind of see what the trails in my hometown look like, because that's something that I haven't really showcased too much. So first of all, I did buy a new bike, and I've been really enjoying it, and I'm going to reveal that bike in just a second. But for the meantime, I just want to revisit the Ripmo AF. I swapped the dropper post out because I wanted to run the yoke on my new bike, and that had a garbage dropper, so I sold that. Bought a 1UP V2 and threw that into this bike. I'm running the Mimic, the Specialized Mimic saddle on here. I don't hate it. I ran it on my trainer all winter long, so I spent a lot of hours on this saddle already. For a bike like this, it's going to be just fine. The big change, there's two big changes. The first one is that I've upgraded the fork to 170 millitravel. And then I've got the Hayes Dominion A4s on here now, because I did have some complaints about the SLX 4-pots that I had on here previously, where I was saying it requires a lot of effort to get that stopping power out. And I think the Dominions are gonna work really, really nicely for me. So that's the old bike. What about the new one? Okay, just give me a sec. Okay, this is the 2023 YT Izzo, and there's a lot to talk about with this bike. Now I know that it's an old bike. It's a little long in the tooth maybe in terms of the product cycle, but every review that I read about it, everything that I saw about it made it sound like it was the perfect bike for Edmonton. And after spending a little bit of time on the the Ripley AF, I knew what I was looking for. I wanted something that was a little bit more progressive, more progressive. And something especially that was going to be a lot lighter. And this just ticked all the boxes. And for my terrain, I think so far, it's been very, very good. I did get it for 4,500 Canadian. Now, usually it sells for, I believe, 7,500 or 8,000 Canadian. So to save $3,000 to $3,500. It was just like literally a flash sale. There was no announcement of it or anything. It was just this specific model that cratered that hard, and I snatched it up immediately. Let's stop talking shop. Let's get into the good stuff. Let's check out some riding footage, and I have some channel updates too. So I want to just picture myself down into the bottom corner, and we're gonna go ahead and actually start talking about what this channel is gonna be doing in the next couple of months here and for the 2024 year. Well, you can check out some of the footage from my second ride. This is my second ride out this season, second time on dirt, and I am, a little rusty, so be kind. Okay, so I do have a review for the Izzo coming up pretty soon here, but I want to hold off a little bit before I release that video, just because I need to develop my skills a bit more. I'm still pretty rusty, as you can see from the footage. So I want to give myself some time on the bike, get used to it, make sure that everything's dialed. The one complaint that I have right now is just my suspension setup. And I really liked this setup last year, but I'm struggling with it a bit now. So I need to figure out exactly what's going on and if I can't dial it in. But that's a problem for me to figure out. So what's coming up on release schedule? So obviously we're gonna have an Izzo review coming out. As you might be able to see, I am in a new garage. We moved to a new house, but this garage, it has some limitations. I can't build in the winter. It's not insulated, it's not heated, it's just a garage. But for the summertime, it does mean that I have access to a couple of build projects that I've been looking forward to. And one of them is gonna be particularly relevant for my next couple of projects. So I have just turned 40 years old. I'm officially an old man, and I wanted to embark on a little bit of a bike trip, a gift to myself for making it to 40. Stupid, I know, but it's basically my midlife crisis trip. So I want to build up a camp kitchen setup. This is something that I've wanted for a long time. I drive a hatchback. If I'm going to be car camping on this trip, I have very limited space, so it needs to have a pretty small footprint. And it needs to also double as storage, but it can't be too heavy. And there's all of these things that kind of factor in. So I've been doing some design work. I've got a pretty thorough idea of what I'm looking for. It's pretty simple, but I do think it's going to work really nicely for me, especially if I find myself in a situation where I'm on an FSR or in just, a Crown Land campsite or something like that, where I don't have access to a picnic table. The whole thing should be able to pull out, fold out, and be a perfectly usable, comfortable camp kitchen setup. So that's going to be my next build video. And I'm going to say that in the YT Izzo build should be out within the next 2 months, which I realize those timelines sound crazy in YouTube years, but I work a full-time job and right now my schedule has me out of town about 50% of the time, so I don't have as much time in town as I would like to get all of these things done. So we'll chip away at them until I get onto my holiday. And then that holiday is obviously going to be producing a bunch of different content that you likely have not seen from me. I mean, I do want to do a couple of different things with that trip. I obviously want to film a good amount of it. So the trip is going to start for me in the Kootenays, which came very highly recommended. So I'm very excited to spend some time exploring the Kootenays. I'll be starting there. I should be at Sun Peaks for opening weekend, and then I'll be able to head over to Vancouver. We'll do a couple of days on the island, because I'm going to do 12 hours in Cumberland with a buddy of mine and then a bunch of his friends from Vancouver, which I'm probably not going to film. That's kind of just a for me thing, but I'm super looking forward to that. And then from there, I'll be going back up to Squamish and then over to Whistler. And I have spent a lot of time in Squamish. I've spent almost no time in Whistler, and I have not spent nearly enough time on the North Shore. I've done like 1 or 2 days of riding on the North Shore my whole life. So I'm incredibly excited to get out there and enjoy some of these like super incredible and technical and challenging and fun trails. I'll be bringing the Ripmo for that whole trip. That's going to be my primary bike. The Izzo is really more of a just for Edmonton thing, but I'm choked that I can't bring 2 bikes because I feel like 12 hours of Cumberland, like the Izzo would be a great bike to have. So I'm a little bit disappointed that I can't run that one, but these are the breaks. I guess I could bring 2 bikes, but then I would be so paranoid about somebody stealing my bike. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. But before, I mean, obviously, like to do a trip that long, I've been training in the off season. So in the winter, I was sat on the trainer an awful lot, making sure that my fitness was going to be in a good place. I've been going back to the gym. I've been trying to rehab my shoulder. Like I'm doing all the things to try to make sure that I can maximize my enjoyment on this trip. And also as part of that, then I want to make sure that my riding, my technical skills are in pretty good shape. So before I go on the trip, actually this coming weekend, I'm going to be going down to Cranbrook to ride with a buddy of mine. And then after that, I'll be spending a little bit of time at Moose Mountain. I hopefully will be doing the Baseline Poker Rally, but that's a week before I'm supposed to depart for the trip. So things get a little bit dicey because I don't want to get injured before I go. And that mountain's kind of hairy, and I could see things getting carried away. So I don't know. We'll see. But that would be a really good test. I do like how steep that mountain is. It would be a really good test. I just have to remind myself to keep it in check, if that's at all possible. So yeah, when it comes to this actual trip, then really what I'm looking to do is something a little bit different. I mean, I'm probably going to be putting out some faster edits, like just kind of vloggy type stuff, like maybe some ride footage, which is not something that I've ever done before, really. I don't know if it's going to do well. I don't know if I care if it does well. It's just kind of, for me at a certain point, it's just about me cataloging the experience. And if that's one of the ways that I can do it, then may as well, what the hell. But once I get back home after the trip, I probably will be doing some more composed edits in the traditional style, or in the style that I've sort of tried to explore on the channel in the past. So a little bit more like overdubby and storytelling and something more like that. So I'm hoping to get a bunch of different projects out of this month of travel. I mean, obviously each zone very easily could have its own video. But then there's all the little stories that happen along the way. So there's lots to talk about on a trip like this. And I'm curious to see how it's going to unfold, because I don't know what these stories are going to be until they're captured on camera. I have zero intention of planning it in advance. I just want to put it together and see what happens. Obviously, I haven't been putting out a ton of content, so this is going to be really different. There'll be a lot coming out for me this year, I think. And a lot of the reason for that was because I didn't have an action camera, but I did buy a DJI Action 4, and I have been reasonably impressed so far. It's not too bad. But it's certainly a huge upgrade over what I had before. I had a Hero 4 that I was running like separate audio off of. I had to run it on a gimbal. Like it was a nightmare setup. I was not inspired to record with it, but the Action 4 is super easy. A little bit heavy to wear on a helmet cam, like on the top of the head. I'm curious to see how it's going to feel on the chin bar, because I haven't tried that yet. But it feels great on the chest, and that's what all this riding footage was shot on, was just a chest mount. Something to just be appreciative of, that I was able to get the Izzo on such a good deal that it afforded me a little bit of extra money in the budget to buy the camera as well. So I've got lots of stuff coming down the pipe, so subscribe if you haven't. If you are subscribed, thanks for doing so. Come back often, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.